We are back in session. Parties and council are present. All members of our jury and our alternates are present. Dr. Rudin is back on the witness stand, and Mr. Rhines, you may continue your examination.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Oh, it's up for me. Dr. Rudin, do you see 1150, Exhibit 1150P being shown on the screen?
One moment, please. Yes?
And the image on the, this is an image that you created within your computer software, correct?
Yeah.
The image on the left is of the Faro scan of the truck, correct?
Yes.
And the image on the right is from the suspect vehicle, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So when I talked about selecting points, data points on the vehicle in the model, that's what's depicted on the left, correct?
Yeah.
And then that's what's projected into the suspect video on the right, correct?
Okay, so just to be more precise, it's not projected yet. Those are the points I clicked. The points on the right are the ones I clicked, which I judge to be similar to points on the left.
Okay, so you selected the points on the left on the Faro model, correct?
Yeah.
And you selected the points on the right in the suspect video, correct?
Right.
You could agree that that would introduce a level of potential error into any computation, correct?
You mean this particular set because there's something wrong with it, or because I select manually?
Because you select manually in both environments, the model and the evidence video, your manual selection would introduce a potential for error, correct?
Well, error in what? In a conclusion or error in a projective mapping?
Both.
No, projective mapping is always perfect. Whatever you select, it gives you. It's like a machine. You throw this in, it computes it, and it gives you whatever. I said, okay, if you think this is that, that's what I'm going to give you.
But it's not perfect, is it?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
No? Is there something wrong with it?
In fact, you believe that the process has a level of error, correct?
Well, always. Okay. Any manual selection process has some level of error.
And you have previously testified that your results of your experiments have what you've called guarded error, correct?
Well, there's always error. There are many sources of error. This could be one source of error. There could be other round of error in computation. Model itself could be imperfect, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, you testified on February 5th, and I'm referring to page 3672. Quote, but there was some guarded error that we derived, correct?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. Guarded error in what? In reprojection? Or guarded error in measuring lengths? Because there were two processes involved, we get mixed. One process is reprojection, but if you remember, I introduced also lengths from the laser scan. So which one error are you talking about?
You can have error in both, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And on February 5th, you described your process as resulting in guarded error, correct?
I don't remember, I cannot recall what I referred to.
And isn't it true that in February 5th, you set that error rate of what would be acceptable at, or what would be suspicious, I'm sorry, what would be questionable, suspicious, at 10%, correct?
Okay, you're referring to lengths, if I recall correctly. I believe I set it at about, I said 6%.
So when you testified on page 3672, okay, so it's sort of in any way subjective, but I would say that in my practice, I would be very suspicious if the error is like 10% or something like this. Do you recall saying that?
I would say I would be very suspicious, but my threshold, I believe, was about 6 or 7, 6% or something like that.
Well, and now you've lowered it to 5% in your testimony yesterday, is that correct?
Again, it's subjective based on experience.
And that's exactly actually what I'm leading up to. You said yesterday that the margin of error acceptability is subjective, correct?
To some extent, based on experience, and if statistics available, you can make it less subjective.
But you said it was subjective, right?
Okay, you're playing this board, but okay, let's go there.
And you're the one that sets that level subject to your experience, your analysis, your experience. So you're in control of what that margin of error is acceptable, correct?
When I render an opinion of reject or accept, I usually use some threshold, and I'm pretty sure that my numbers in my head is about 5 to 6%.
But in February, it was 10%.
I may have mentioned 10% as something very suspicious, totally suspicious.
So,
But you should find there 5 or 6. I mean, I know I'm a senior citizen now, but I remember saying 5 or 6. There must be it. It must be there because I've been consistently using it.
and despite those margins of errors, you could not exclude or reject, reject is your word, the truck from the suspect vehicle, correct?
Because it was less than 6%.
So then, you came up with since your time with us in February, you continued to do work, correct?
For a short period of time, then I stopped, and then I started again.
And you kept trying to solve things that you could not explain in your original work. Would that be fair to say?
Well, my intuition was that there was something else that I haven't explained. That's just as a scientist, I had intuition that I need to dig deeper in it.
And in doing so, you came up with some work regarding measurements, correct?
Correct.
And we saw on your Resume Direct this morning several exhibits from, I believe, 1151, where you drew some lines and came up with some measurements, correct?
And you're referring to this morning?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And you were shown specifically 1151E. I'm going to put that back up on the screen there for you by Mr. McGee. Okay? You recognize that?
Yes.
And those dots, points, and measurements were hand selected by you, correct?
This is the end product. The dots were in the image, so those were selected by me.
Okay.
So you have to go to the image.
Sure. However, you were not shown Exhibit C from 1151, so I'm going to show that to you now,
Yes.
which is this one. Do you recognize that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And again, these are data points from the Faro model on the left,
Yes.
and those are superimposed into the suspect video on the right, correct?
It's the product result of this particular computation.
Okay? And in this case, I'm going to zoom in. You went from what appears to be this running light thing on the back of the bed of the truck, correct?
Yes.
To the front approximate location of the corner of the headlight void. Would that be fair to say?
Okay.
Is that fair?
I mean, the reasonable location.
Right. And then when you put it into the evidence video, they line up, don't they?
What do you mean by lined up? It gives me some result, okay? Which then I need to compare to
Right.
to the original table, right?
And in this case, the features line up, correct?
I don't know what do you mean by line up. You mean the numbers?
The points match.
Objection vague as to which point.
Overruled.
So, so you mean the numbers? The numbers. It's not a reprojection experiment. It's a measurement experiment, right? So there's no projection of a pattern into pattern, right? It's not like you're taking a bunch of points and you're projecting them with one map. This is point per point you locating in the 3D scan, right? So I can explain to you what this experiment is. This was actually an experiment, it's an experiment to see what would have happened if in fact I input the that light on the back of the white truck and what sort of thing is it going to produce for me, okay? So I already knew that that's a wrong assumption, but I wanted to know how the algorithm is going to behave and if it's going to tell me that there is something wrong. Because this is a brand new algorithm in a sense, conceptually, even though it goes back 25 years. And I wanted to know, hey, if I had that thing before, would it avoid me all this aggravation of assuming that that dot was what I thought it was, and everybody else thought that's what it was, right? So, so I ran this experiment, and in terms of the lengths, so we're looking at AB. So AB originally, my AB is supposed to be 16.0.5, and in this case I'm getting 16.76. So my AC is supposed to be, my AC is supposed to be, well, I forgot which one. See, AC is this one. AB is this one. So AC is this one, and AD is this one. So my AD is supposed to be 17.100, and so on. Okay. So if you actually look at it, it kind of looks interesting because number-wise, it's not as terrible, but except that this one I'm not sure I measured BD. Did I actually give you the BD? Yes, it's 4.66, and oh, wait a minute. This is not the result. This is not the...
Right, this is the one you weren't shown on direct. So those measurements are not in that chart that you have in your hand.
Wait. There is another picture. So
I'm talking about this picture.
Okay. So when I do this process, I actually show two things. One is when I actually click points and show the actual numbers that come from the model, and the other one that should show the result. So is this the result, or this is actually comes from the model? So can you show me the model, what it says on the model? So, okay, don't zoom please, because I need to compare. Zoom it out, please.
So Where I'm pointing at, it says 16.07,
That's the AB, right?
and this says 16.76.
Right.
Right?
Could you please do me a favor and show me both at the same time? Yeah, wonderful. So this is 16. And this is, and the one is 17 point what?
Well, it's
Yeah, that's,
1.3 on this side,
yeah, this is not the result.
1.3 on this side.
I don't think this is the result. There must be another one.
What?
There's something is missing.
This is your work, right?
Yeah, but there is another one.
I know, Mr. Rubin, you didn't talk with Mr. McGee about this on direct. I'm asking you about this exhibit. And isn't it true
but,
that those data points from the model line up to and match the data points which projected into the evidence video?
No, this may be not a projection. This is actual, it's a representation, okay? So I do two things. I want to make sure that, I think that's just a representation, 4.6. So I show it in two different ways. So in one, I usually say, okay, so these are the points, and if they were perfect, they would look like that, okay? And then another one, I actually show how it projects. So I'm looking for another one like that. Is there another one like that with different numbers?
You're the one that created them.
Projection argument.
Yeah, I know. I created many things.
What do the numbers on this one that shows?
I just want to see my old data. I mean, I should not be denied to look at all my data.
You can look at all your data anything you want. What are the numbers on this particular one?
So those signify the heights, and they're exactly the same, right? So they're exactly the same. So here it says 17.5, I believe it's 1.3, and it's exactly the same. So that means we basically said, okay, if this was perfect, this is what it would look like. Okay? So because what was this? 4.6, yeah. We're saying if this was perfect, this is what it should say. But then there must be another one which says, and I'm very suspicious of it because it's perfect. Okay, and I know it didn't come out perfect. So there's something else about it that's not perfect I will mention. So there got to be another one. You're showing me like one piece. There must be a second piece.
Which
Well, let me pull up another one for you.
That has different numbers. Because those numbers sound like exactly the same, even though I can hardly read it, but it looks the same. I should have brought my own computer because obviously it's a confusion here.
So let's go to Exhibit G, 1151B then.
Okay?
This your work?
That's a different one. It's not that one. Keep on going. That's about different set of points.
Right, but this time, isn't it correct? You marked approximately the location of the latch instead of the side running light, correct?
I don't know, approximately as good as I could by looking at the data. So could you swing it back to the right?
Well, hold on a minute. And so the measurements here on the A and B and stuff is 1605, and is that 1665? Is that what that is? The red one?
It sure looks it, yeah.
Okay. And then when you projected it into the nighttime video,
Yeah, that's exactly, that's the same set.
and those line up, don't they?
Yeah, because it's not the numbers from measurements. This is the numbers of what it should be. So my exhibit consists
Your
of
Honor,
two.
counsel is misleading the witness and he's misleading the jury because these numbers.
The witness is quite able to explain what his exhibits show.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I think maybe Mr. Adams is a little confused, and I understand. We show these results in two ways. We're saying, okay, this is what it should be, and this is what we get. And since I should have probably marked it more clearly. So there got to be for each of those, there got to be another one, okay? So it basically, because I believe if I show the model, I simply copy those numbers. It's a copy paste basically, up to round of error.
So this model here on the left,
Yes,
and those are the measurements you took within Faro in the model.
correct. To my best ability,
And
yes.
then you transpose them to the evidence video on the right.
Right. It's a rigid constraint. That's what it should be when it comes out. That's what it should be. So show me another one what it is. That's my way of presenting. Maybe it's not a perfect way of presenting, but that's how I present it.
You would agree, though, that those data points line up?
Not the data points, the measurements are exactly the same. The points line up doesn't mean anything. What does it mean? Line up with what? As compared to what?
So I understand your testimony. What you're saying is the measurements on the model are the actual measurements that you made off of the Faro scan.
Yes, correct.
And then you just copied what those measurements
Should
were on the evidence video, the Mitchley video, in this particular exhibit.
So I actually go through the process of doing this thing, remember, dropping the pads
Yeah.
on the ground? But then I'm not putting the actual numbers, I'm saying this is what it should be. I should.
If the vehicle was the same
Right.
vehicle, this is what it
Is
should
it-
be.
Yeah, this is a rigid constraint.
Okay, so you're copying the measurements
Yeah.
on the, and putting the identical, you're intentionally putting the identical measurements on the Mitchley video.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. To show that if it's the same vehicle, that's the way it should look.
That's what I call rigid constraint.
Okay. And then you did another one to say, and here's what the actual is.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you look at my paper, I do exactly the same thing. My first picture, which is in my paper, is called Truck Model Video with Matched Features and Rigid Constraint Measurements. It shows exactly same set. Yeah, it's exactly the same set. So I'm very consistent. So my first picture, basically copy-paste. It's literally copy-paste. And then the next one, which looks like this, that doesn't show truck, actually shows two pads measurements, distances between the pads, or whatever the sticks. And that would look like this. So find me one of those, and I'll explain to you what it is. So you're missing another piece of presentation. It's the way I present things. I present things as what it should be, and then what it is.
Is court done inquiry?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that one issue. You may continue.
Well, this method you use for measurements, well, let me backtrack.
But why don't you bring that picture, because you just confused the jury.
Your involvement in doing these experiments on the evidence video and the models has never been done before, correct?
You mean this particular method?
Yes.
Well, okay, let me qualify it like this. Is it a new method? Yes. Is it a new in a sense that is completely something out of the world? Thousands of people used my method to measure people's height. Okay? This is the first time it's used for, so usually given a location, they find the height. And I said, woke up in the morning and said, why don't we reverse that? Given the height, let's find the location. And that way I can land the vehicle. It's, by the way, in one of the emails I send you, that's what I want to do. And, not emails, messages. And that was my way to get on the ground, because I was unsatisfied with projection mapping method, which I refer to as a blood test. It doesn't necessarily give me a location of the vehicle on the ground. And I want it on the ground. I want to know what happens on the ground. So this method allows me to do reversing reversing, give me the position, give me compute the height. I said, give the height, give me the position. So it's not a big leap of it, but it did take 24 years to figure it out. For some reason, it should have been done earlier, but I don't know. And so, yeah, in that way it's new, but in 1,000 other ways it's new. It's not new. It's, method itself is tested by thousands of investigators to measure people's height and all of this stuff. Everybody is using it in the industry since I introduced it in 1995.
But, according to you, those methods have never been used with evidence such as this to do this process, correct?
Not exactly like this, yeah. But it's the same method mathematically, it's the same thing.
And your measurement experiments that you did since you testified in February have never been done either, correct?
Objection
You
day.
mean this particular measurement? I don't know which measurements you're referring to.
The measurements you testified to, and we just showed Sean
This.
that's never been done either, right?
Not exactly like this.
Right, because when the judge asked you a question at the break on the record, you said, quote, "It's a new method I dreamed up." Isn't that what you said?
That's the way mathematicians talk about it.
So there is no way to validate or test to ensure that your measurements are accurate, correct?
Yes, there is, because it's point per point is exactly the same method that people use for human heights. And that was validated.
However,
So
you have no external validation. No one can recreate your work, right?
sure they can. Anybody who has a projection engine for the, that's what I call projection engine. So anybody who has a single frame metrology can now use this method. So I have to
Okay, now, but no one has reviewed your work in this case to judge its accuracy,
Okay,
correct?
So let me explain to you what's new. I don't think I'm getting through. So what's new here is that after I do the individual
I'm going to object
position,
as non-responsive. The question was whether there was review of his work.
Overruled, if you explain this answer.
there was a review in the sense of accuracy per each point. But then I'm saying something that nobody else said before, that wait a minute, but it should be a rigid constraint, because if it's the right vehicle, then the relationship between these points should be preserved. And that part is new, but it's obvious like daylight, right? Vehicles don't shapeshift. We don't have such vehicles yet. Maybe we will in the future, but we don't have it. They're all made of rigid metal and so on. So relationship should be preserved. Nobody observed that before. But then if the points are properly located, point per point, the computing distances between them is trivial formula. I can write to you on the board if you want to right now. Okay? And so that's trivial. That's 101, I don't know, undergraduate BD Geometry 101. So from that point of view, it's not new. But realization of a rigid constraint is completely new. So it's up to you to call it validated or not validated. In my opinion, it's completely validated. I just spoke to a number of people in the forensic community, and they think it's beautiful and it's right.
None of those people reviewed your work to ensure its accuracy, did they?
Well, I'm starting to send this thing all over the place, including American Academy of Forensic Science, where I will be introducing extension of this work and so on.
Because your goal that you testified to yesterday was if you could make this work, you could retire, correct?
Well, you see, sir, what you're doing, you're impugning my character and my motives instead of actually arguing my mathematics and my methods.
Isn't that what you said?
And that is called ad hominem. It's a very dirty trick used in way back in Roman history. You can read some manuals on
Did you
that.
not testify yesterday? Quote, if I can make this work, I can retire.
I may said something like this, but it's not the reason I am developing the methods.
And you mentioned that the vehicle doesn't change shape. However, the image of a vehicle can change, correct?
I don't know what you're saying. You're confused.
You said in your long answer a minute ago that vehicles do not shapeshift or change shape. the rigid method, correct?
Correct.
However, an image of a vehicle can change the shape of the vehicle, correct?
No.
But you said yesterday that somehow the image had shrunk, the trooper. That would change its shape, correct?
Objection, this states his testimony, he's referring to a model, not an image.
Okay, what,
Just the objection sustained. You can ask the next question.
You also said, quote, you don't know the real dimensions of the vehicle in the evidence video. Is that what you testified to this morning?
what are you referring to?
You were referring to the measurements of the suspect vehicle in the evidence video. And you said, quote, we don't know the real dimensions of the vehicle.
Okay, I'm referring to the fact that I was never allowed to see the vehicle and actually measure it by hand. Despite actually asking for it. For which I have an email.
And that regret.
Dr. Rudnick, you have what you're referring to. Now, the exhibits that I showed in 1151, you emailed to me in the middle of the night, correct?
That's my usual style, yes.
And we did not get an opportunity to discuss in detail what each exhibit you sent me was used for in your explanation. Would that be fair to say?
No, we didn't talk about it.
I figured out. I kind of put these in the right order. So B in 1151 shows you measuring the model of the white truck starting from
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
starting from the back corner latch on the rear passenger side and measuring those points A, B, C, D, correct?
Yes, on the model.
And then those exact measurements were just superimposed on here, not as a representation of the video, but a representation of what these numbers are from the model.
Objection, leading.
Is that correct?
It assumes facts on evidence.
Overruled.
Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, copy paste, you can see.
Yeah. And then C, you did the same measurement with the model, but the starting point for A was a different point, correct?
Yeah, it's a sister kind of example with a different choice of points.
And you cut and paste those same measurements over to just this picture with just the video as a backdrop, having no relation between the measurements and what's on the video.
If you could bring the result, it's very interesting.
I found it. Okay, so then the next thing you did is you actually measured the points on the video, correct?
Yes.
And you did that, and lo and behold, that was
Not on the
1151.
video, in the model. I know it's a little complicated because once you drop them, they're sitting in coordinate system of, it's like Google Earth, and it's sitting in there, and now I can actually measure them.
Now, if you just listen to me. Then you took the video evidence, the surveillance video, and you measured the same identical points that you did in B on the video, correct? To which you did in 1151D, which is in this one, you measured from the light to the top left of the one headlight, top left of the other, and then the front, and those gave you the measurements that are in the chart in 1152. Is that correct?
So I'm just trying to qualify that the measurement process involves both video and 3D model in which that thing physically sitting. And then I put it into the video because that's my way to show it, but then I also put it into the representation 3D model on the left, which is exactly same numbers. You can see that.
So that is
both ways.
that is those measurements. These two measurements on the left side of the model of the neighborhood, and the measurements on the video on the right, those are the HPP measurements, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then you kept those same measurements showing you 1151, oh wait, sorry. 1151E, and you put those same measurements into the daytime representation of the same video, correct?
Okay, that's, yes. And
So
that's the
these-
same of the before.
These again are your HPP measurements.
And then there is the one similar for the other one. There should be another one. For the my 517 point, there should be a result there. If not, maybe I forgot to give it to you somehow.
Then we have
Yeah, that's it.
1151F. This appears to have,
That's the one Mr. Imes wouldn't show, yes. This is the one I wanted to show you. This is very interesting, yes.
okay, what does 1155F show? Because this one I'm not sure.
Yes. It shows that if I had that method, let's say, whenever I testified on the 402, I would already know that the point 517 point, this point is wrong point. Because you can see what happens actually. So those measurements are totally out of whack. If you compare it to the other ones superimposed, they're totally out of whack. But not only that, I'm not showing it here, but I have a way to measure. This angle between the AB and I think it's BD is supposed to be 90 degree because the vehicle's front to the side is 90 degree. This is like, this angle you can even see by the eye is greater than 90 by a lot. Okay, I have some correct myself. But the measurements are totally out of whack. So at this point I would have known that, oh my God, I mean, this point makes no sense. And by the way, there's another one. I went and I actually measured why this thing height doesn't make sense, because the overhang of the water covers anything above, I think, 4.17 or something like this, 4 something feet. So nothing above 517 can be seen unless it's on this side of the border. And this is what this method said. This method said, oh my God, I can't put it there, it cannot be seen. I have to put it over here. That's the only place it can be seen. And I would have known immediately, wait a minute, the back wheels of the truck cannot be sitting on the lawn while the front is sitting over there. It's not physically impossible because the angle between these two would be greater than 90 degrees by law, maybe 120 or something. So that shows me right away that my method is working really beautifully.
I totally get it. Maybe if I put it in layman's terms, I totally understand where you are now.
Okay.
When you had first said that the white truck measuring from the rear marker light going down, when you originally had it placed in the model, and it was showing, then you figured out later, it would have been below the ground in the back tire.
Yes.
So for that to still be seen and not be below ground, the only way you can do it is that marker comes closer to the camera,
Yep.
or the picture point.
That's the only way.
And that marker on the left, here on the left, represents where that marker would have to be for the camera to see it.
Yes.
But since the headlights are where the headlights are, those stay there. So you took this measurement and imposed it over onto the ferro skin, and this is where the headlights would be, this is where the marker light would be, and the headlights would be going this way, the marker light should be back there, but since it has this almost 180 degrees, you're talking 25 degrees there, so what, 135?
It's not a human vehicle.
Right. So this is something that looks like it's been in those crash out derbies I used to watch when I was a kid, and they're still rolling around.
Or a UFO or something like that.
So the only way that if that light is the light that's the marker light on the white truck is it would have to be here, straddling over the sidewalk with the headlights still in the street, facing perpendicular to the curb, but the back would be way up there,
Which is physical impossibility.
which is physically impossible. And that's what you're trying to show by 1151F. I think. Great. Well, let's show you the last one so you can explain. I'm sorry I rushed through it before, Now I get what your thought process is. It makes a lot more sense to me. G, which is 1151G. The last one. What does this one represent then?
Okay, that's the question. So I already know, of course, at this point that that it is impossible to see anything like this 517 point, that high corner point on that light truck.
And let me interrupt you there. When you say the 517 point, you're giving the height in feet of the marker
Yes.
from the ground. So you say 517, you're saying it's 5'17" feet from the
I think
ground.
that's what the measurement there is.
So when you see an L here, that's a 437 point, you can describe what that means. So you're making reference to the height, correct, from the ground?
That's the actual photogrammetric measurement, actual photogrammetry used to compute what is the highest object that can be seen at the borderline, what do you call that? Walk?
Sidewalk?
Curb?
Curb?
Yeah, so at the curb, the highest thing that can be seen according to this measurement is 4.37, which says that if there is any vehicle with light which is above 4.37, it would have been covered by this overhead, it cannot be seen. However, when you move down to the, where the vehicle exits, and with the white, and then I show it here again, that's okay at 4.37. But when you go to the right, that actually threshold is raised to 4.7. Now, why is it significant? Because I was actually trying to understand. I already saw that there was a difference in height, that there's more you can see on the right than you can see on the left. People who watch this video can see that, okay? And originally it was not clear why is it happening, because projectively I thought those things are parallel because this is a parallel overhang, and I have some explanation what's happening. But bottom line, I thought, well, should we see that light? I mean, I thought it was high enough, and I was like, why don't we see this 517 light? And it turns out that this thing also not high enough, so should it be that other truck, we wouldn't see that thing either. So it just resolved to me that I couldn't possibly see that light even if I wanted to, okay? Unless it's on this side of the border, okay? But that's impossibility. We don't have cars that are made like this yet, okay? So that's the pure photogrammetric explanation what's going on. I wish I had it when I first testified, but there is an explanation, and I made it to the judge at the time. I specifically made an explanation. What happened was that until I think January, I think I checked the email. On January 27, I sent an email to, I think, Detective Ryan, and at about that time, and we are discussing, like, can I get the scan, laser scan?
Sustained.
Can I?
Wait, you can ask your next question.
Thank you. I do have a couple questions on top of that, because I think you clarified this pretty well. A couple things that came up during cross that I wanted to ask about. You started working with the government on this case in 2015?
You mean the DA's office?
Yeah.
I think that the first email went out in 2014. No, it's not like I think I know, because I just checked last night. It starts 2014.
So you've been an expert working with the district attorney's office to try and get this case ready for trial from 2014 until 2019.
Objection assumes a fact not in evidence.
Objection sustained.
You were working with the district attorney's office from 2014 until when?
Okay, so it started in 2014, but it was stop and go until 2019. It was the strangest collaboration I ever seen. in my 30 years. Basically, they came, they inquired, okay? They gave us some data. They came, brought some data, and then we didn't hear from them, I believe, for 3 years. Then the gentlemen that came, they're all very nice people. And then somebody, one of them came to my office in 2017.
Sustained. Who first contacted you, the DA's office or the sheriff's office? If you remember, in 2014.
To answer that question, Mr. Rubin, would it help to refer to your notes?
Yes.
Would you, with court permission, if you may do so?
Sure.
They're my notes.
Or whatever you have in front of you.
I apologize. I just saw that thing. Okay, so I have something 2015. Then I have communication 2015. 2015. Then I have communication 2019. And I have when is that? That's 2009. Okay, here it is. I think that's the first one. That's October 23rd, 2014. We were contacted by Detective Spears from San Bernardino County Sheriff Department. Yes, that was it. That was the original one.
And that was the first time you started to do some work on the case.
Yeah, that was the first one they got contacted us, and if I remember correctly, because it's kind of a stop and go, and so I can't read exactly. I don't put those things when people stop and go. It's not very clear. It's not normal.
And then after that, were most of your contacts with someone from the sheriff's office or from the DA's office?
So then, so after Detective Skiers contacted us, then, if you forgive me, then I see the next thing is August 25, 2015, and at that point, it's Detective Smith Ryan Communications. And then, that's Mr. Ryan. And then there was another name, I remember.
Someone from the sheriff's office there.
I don't know, at that point, I think they're all sheriff's office, but I believe that in 2017, we have a deputy DA that came to my office, and we talked to him.
That was me.
That was you. Well, I was very ill. I had some heart problems, so I don't exactly remember.
Okay,
But,
all right, that answers the question of when the work began and how it started. Anything else, Mr. Meadu?
Yes. And when you testified in the 402 hearing, as you kept calling it, on February 5th, you were still set to testify for the government.
Objection to relevance.
Sustained,
Court's order.
sustained also calls for speculation and conclusion.
During that hearing, there was mention of this 10% something. Objection, if I can have my computer back. I'm showing you that page 3672. Is this where the 10% was written? Does that give context to you as to what is referenced to?
Okay, so where is
So on line 16 is the 10%, the question was that 8.
And this, I would be very suspicious if the error is like 10% or something like this. Yeah, I might have said that. Certainly I would be very suspicious.
Do you understand the context of why you said that number?
Okay, let me read it. Yeah, I do.
Okay, with that in mind, let's go forward to page 3711 of that same testimony where you're addressing the error percentage, I believe. You start on line 1 and go through where you change your answer on the percentage.
I was a little tired there. So that was, yeah, we were getting 6% and 3% on one measurement and 6% on the other. We were measuring the same thing. But then I said, but what concerns me, the larger error, which is like if it went to be on, let's say, 7-8% and it was consistent, then I would just say, okay, that is right. So I remember that. So I was okay with 6% in a guarded way. So I was not happy with it, so that's meant guarded. I mean, I was not happy with it. 3% would have been much nicer, 1% would have been even better.
But in the end, 6% if it's guarded okay. When you said the 10%, at one point, you went back to the 6%, which is what you're saying now.
My real threshold, no, okay. So when I said 10%, it's like I would lose my sleep and probably, have a drink or something. But at 6%, I was not that happy, but I would still be able to sleep.
Here, can we approach 1 second on the ruling?
Sure, with the recorder.
Yes.